Welcome back to Música con Mezcal, everybody. I'm Brandon Bagg, and I am sitting here with the one and only Scott Verbeek, and I'm going to pour us both a mezcal while I ask Scott Verbeek, how's he doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, buddy. Every time I have a sip of mezcal, it takes me back to a 2019 tour with Malcolm Aiken, Mexico City.
Yeah, you toured Mexico City with Malcolm in 2019.
We had a lot of mezcal. I remember one day cheers.
Cheers.
We got to a club and I said, the club guy said, "I have a mezcal for you." I said, no, I'm okay. He said, "What do you mean you're okay?" And he said, "I made this. This is mine." And we said, "Okay, let's go." Never mind.
Yeah. So 2019, that was also the same year that Stanza came out, your album.
Yes, sir. That was, hey? Feels a long time ago.
2019 feels like a long fucking time ago now. It's like, because so much has happened. So 2019 was like our last semblance of normality in like the human consciousness for the last little while. Not that we were normal before then.
Yeah.
But it really, it was 4 years ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago. The album you're talking about, just 6 instrumental tracks that I wrote. This is the album cover right here, buddy.
Yeah, the classic red guitar.
Yeah, the classic red guitar. I've been working on a few new ones, but the problem is I got to focus in.
Yeah.
So
most often I've seen you play with that red guitar. But the other day you had a gig at Guilt & Co. You actually had to run home and grab a spare guitar. What actually happened there?
Okay. I'm not gonna fault the guy that fixes my guitars, but basically there's a problem.
But you're gonna fault the guy that fixes your guitars? I'm not gonna fault him, but my guitar was fucked up, and I pay him to not make them fucked up.
That's what happened, but it wasn't his fault. Sometimes it gets a little crazy, so I had to run. So basically, the input jack, right, where the patch cable goes in, if that cuts out, you're fucked, right? So I was in the club, and it starts going a little, and I just got it back that day. Completely stops working. So Max Sapersky, the keys player, we're on stage. I said, "Hey, buddy, give me your keys. I got to go home right now." So I got a new guitar, and that guitar actually has a crack in the neck, right? I don't know.
Really?
One-piece neck, crack right at the top. I don't know how it got the crack. I was in Tofino on this gig, and I pulled it out, and there's just a big old crack. So what happened was I rung my guitar tech the next day, and I said, "Hey, man," I was upset, right? I'm like, "Hey, man, just to let you know, you gave me a completely unusable guitar for my gig last night, and I need to get it fixed right away." And it wasn't his fault, it was another problem similar to the problem I brought in. Anyway, he changes it out. And then I said, "While I'm here, I got this crack in my guitar neck. So can you do me a favor, right?" And he was like, "I guess I inconvenience you, you inconvenience me, Scott." So he took this Gibson with a crack in the neck. And with that one crack in the neck, over time, it'll just get bigger and bigger, and eventually you'll be on a gig and the headstock will just snap right off.
Right. Yeah.
So he took the Gibson and he said, "Hold the body." So I'm holding the body of the guitar, and he has this crazy, it's not crazy glue, it's some sort of glue that's really, it's almost thinner than water, so it gets in all the cracks. But he told me that one time when he was working on a guitar, he left his hand on the guitar, and he had to take a razor blade to get his hand off. He had to cut
Jesus.
Yeah. So he takes this glue, and he says, "See the crack of the guitar?" It was like watching a birth, man. He's like, you see the crack on the guitar, and then he rocks it back and forth, and you see the crack go, and the glue slowly gets in, and apparently it fixes it. So even though I had to run home to change guitars, I put a little guilt into him and got a free fix, which could have costed me a lot more.
That glue's insane though. I remember years ago, my sister left her guitar at my place. And at the time, I was living in like a house with, I don't know, 5 other people. It was a party house. It was the crash pad that everyone partied at.
Yeah.
And she came over and I think went to work or something and left her guitar there. And then I came home from work one day and she was like, I don't remember the exact order of events because I was probably a little bit drunk, but she was upset and my roommates were trying to hide something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I see the guitar and like, there's, you know, the body of the guitar and like the base of the neck had just snapped. Like it's just a crack, like half an inch long.
Yeah.
And I saw red. I was like, I'm gonna fucking kill all of my roommates right now. They just smashed my sister's guitar. And she loved that thing. My parents got it for her. She still has it because we found a luthier in the area. And I said, is there anything you can do with this thing? And she said, yeah, I can fix it. And we took it to her and she fucking glued it back together. And it's worked ever since. That was over a decade ago.
Yeah. You know, if the crack gets too deep, then sometimes the tone is never the same. So I'm always a little worried about that. Yeah. But yeah,
you're a far more accomplished musician than her and I ever were.
Yeah, as long as you can smash a G chord, you're good, right? Sweet.
Exactly, yeah.
I remember a gig with 5 Alarm Funk in Alberta. So Ollie, the rhythm guitar player, always liked to, at the end of the gig, put his SG, his Gibson SG, right on the ground and let the feedback, you know, everyone's like clapping and it's like, wee! He gets the crazy rock and roll feedback, right? And he likes to put it right behind the drums. And Teo's thing was the drummer would like to put his foot on the drum stool and then put his other foot on the toms and then take the mic and yell at everyone. So he's like, thank you all so much, blah, blah. And I see him just take a step down to the floor, bam, right on the neck of the Gibson SG.
Oh, fuck.
And I was like...
It just hurts.
I was like... Because I knew it's just fucked, right? And how he dealt with it. Ollie was already off stage when it happened, so Ollie didn't see it. And Teo's got a hoarse voice. He goes, Ollie, Ollie, I stepped on your guitar and I completely broke it in half. And I'm really sorry, man. Like, come look at it.
So that reminded me, because I've seen you play like so many different styles of music. You've got a very, very, I sometimes I walk into Guilt and I don't know who's playing and I hear guitar. I'm like, that's Scott. Scott's playing. But I've seen you play so many different genres, so many different styles, but specifically talking about rock and roll, because I know that you have a history in rock and roll. You and I have talked about like bands that we love from you know, early rock to metal to whatever. Talking about broken guitars.
Yeah.
There's that era of rock and roll where, you know, Jimi Hendrix and Pete Townsend and everything would like that birth of at the end of the show. Yeah. They would smash their fucking guitars.
Oh man.
And it always fucking pained the shit out of me.
Does it break your heart too?
It breaks my fucking heart every single fucking time.
It breaks my heart. I saw the bass player Blink-182. What he used to do is instead of breaking his guitar, he'd give it to a kid at the end.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's something that like, totally. Like, why break that fucking thing?
You know, I guess it was just performance art, man. But I personally can't get behind it.
Yeah. How many guitars do you have at home?
Right now I got 4 nice ones. Mm-hmm. So I got the acoustic Martin. See, the thing they don't tell you about guitars is once you get more and more, it's hard to keep them all up, right? So the acoustic Martin's playing okay right now.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what guitars...
I have 4 on my walls, and one of them is strung and in tune.
Nice.
Fully strung and in tune.
Nice. So we got the Martin. It's okay. In okay shape right now. Been hacked up a little bit. It can record all right, but if I was going into a session tomorrow, I'd probably need to get it set up a little bit. The one that's, I sort of feel like sometimes certain guitars in my collection get hot for a few months. I'm like, this one's red hot. So right now, right now my telly's red hot right now. So I'm bringing it out a lot. The Telecaster to me is the most pure and versatile guitar you can play. If I could only play one, I'd probably just play my Telecaster. You can play country on it. You can play.
Yeah, they're great guitars.
Yeah, one of my favorite Canadian guitar players of all time. His name's Ed Beckert. He played beautiful jazz on a Telecaster, right? But the thing about the Telecaster is it doesn't really hide mistakes. So it's pure, but you got to play it correctly. So I'm bringing that one out more right now, mostly because kind of my version of a Cadillac, which is my Gibson 355 with the Bigsby whammy bar, cherry red.
Yeah.
Once it got the crack in the neck, even though it's fine now, I'm like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't take it around. Because when you take it around, it just gets beat up, right?
Yeah, totally.
But it's playing pretty well. And then I have basically my tribute to Eddie Van Halen is so I got a Stratocaster 63 reissue, and I put the Floyd Rose in, and the Floyd Rose is the big whammy bar, like you know the Kickstart My Heart Motley Crue intro. It sounds like a motorcycle. Yeah. I was like, I have to be able to do that.
That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite songs. I love it. It's just something about that jam. It's
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hell yeah. So even though, I don't really get hired to play hard rock a lot.
Yeah.
I just needed it's in my mind, it's a super Strat, right? So with guitars, if you have the one coil pickups, it's a little thinner, and then the double coil or humbucker, you can rock out. So I put the rear humbucker and the Floyd Rose. Everyone's tuning out right now. No one cares. But those are my babies, my 4 babies.
Yeah. So when you started playing, did you start playing in high school or younger?
I started when I was 8.
8.
Yeah. Because my parents were like, we need to get this kid into something. Because when I was in class, I would.
Were you a disruptive influence?
Yes. Either that or just looking at the roof.
Yeah.
Like totally.
Either getting into trouble or
totally disengaged.
Yeah. They're either yelling at you or you're eating paint chips.
Yeah, when I got older, I found out I have ADHD, so that's why. So they were like, let's get him into something.
Yeah, I found out when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and then it got worse, and it's continuing to get worse the older I get.
Yeah,
I'm just getting grumpier and less functional every passing day. I'm like more of an asshole and less good at life.
That's not true. What was I talking about?
Started at 8.
So my dad, I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba till I was 6, right? And my dad had this pickup truck called Elvira. And
like the square dancing song?
Yeah.
Elvira.
Hell yeah. So it had Elvira written on the side, and he had all these old Neil Young tapes. And he had a cottage in Lake Winnipeg, right? So we would drive to Lake Winnipeg, and we would listen to Neil Young. And so I got this guitar, and I kind of played for fun a little bit, not too much. But the thing that hooked me is when I felt like I could sound like these Neil Young tapes that my dad played me when I was younger, right?
Right.
So I started listening to Neil Young a lot. The songs I learned, I think the first one I learned was like Heart of Gold, Keep on Rocking in the Free World.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Helpless, Needle and the Damage Done, once I learned some more chords, So just cowboy chord shit. Yeah. And then after that, it was, and I still love it, Van Halen, Metallica, Motley Crue.
Favorite Metallica album?
My favorite Metallica is probably the material that Dave Mustaine wrote, which is
the first album.
First album, and some of actually Ride the Lightning, Dave Mustaine wrote.
I didn't realize Dave Mustaine wrote any Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, about half of it.
Cool. I didn't know that.
That's how you know if you get fired from a band and your songs are
still
two albums
later.
Yeah. then you're dope.
Yeah.
So Mustaine was always my favorite Like if you hear the old bootlegs before Kill 'Em All with Dave Mustaine, he played.
Yeah, and what was the first Megadeth was "Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good." That's a killer album.
Yeah.
So good. They kicked him out, and he was just like, "Whatever, I'm gonna make the best metal band ever."
Yeah. So
Megadeth.
my favorite Metallica was probably the more Mustaine influence.
Yeah.
And then my favorite Megadeth record was Peace Sells, But Who's Buying?
Yeah, that's a great album.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. So I still listen to that shit. I still love Van Halen. And so kind of in my teen years, I
mean, which era?
only David Lee Roth.
Only David Lee Roth, right?
Yeah. Once David Lee Roth is out, I'm out.
Yeah.
If I want to listen to Sammy Hagar, I'll listen to Sammy Hagar separate.
But
I probably won't.
You know what band I used to feel that way about?
Yeah.
Well, I do feel that way about Van Halen, incidentally.
Yeah.
But I felt like that about Sabbath for the longest time because I'm a big Sabbath fan.
Yeah.
And I loved Ozzy Sabbath.
Yeah.
My mom, which is the weirdest thing ever, 'cause my mom was not her jam, but she randomly had one Sabbath vinyl that I remember listening to when I was like 10 years old.
Which
one?
one?
Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, oddly enough.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So I was always really, really into Ozzy Sabbath.
Yeah.
And then Dio Sabbath just never sounded right to me. It always sounded a little bit off.
Yeah.
But then I got a little bit into Dio, and I listened to a bunch of Dio. And then I went back and listened to Dio Sabbath, and I'm like, yeah, they're both their own cup of tea.
Ronnie James Dio could sing.
Ronnie James Dio is
I liked the Rainbow album, which was Ronnie James Dio and Richie Blackmore. So yeah, man, I would in my teens I would play a lot of rock and roll, and I kind of came from it. So I have a jazz degree, right? Whatever that means.
Yeah, you went to Berkley in Boston.
Yeah. So eventually I got into jazz, right? But I kind of came through it in the opposite way, almost like discovering music while going back in time, right? Listening to rock and roll.
Yeah, totally. And then you're like, what inspired this?
Yeah.
What inspired this?
Yeah.
What inspired this?
Totally. So between the rock and roll, I got into the jazz fusion, right? Mahavishnu Orchestra, Return to Forever.
Yeah.
Stuff that was a small enough gap to get in from the rock. And that's when I really fell in love with jazz. So I started listening to Miles Davis, John Coltrane, and probably my biggest inspiration right now is Ornette Coleman, who's kind of the, can I say inventor of free jazz? Pioneer of free jazz.
You can. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
You're the one with the jazz degree.
Yeah, jazz nerds don't listen to this or quote me on anything. Ornette Coleman had a cool quote. He said, the most beautiful thing about being human is your decision in the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
And so sort of what that means to me is my favorite thing about playing music, even though when I was a kid, I fell in love with just learning the tunes, right? Discovering records. But when it crossed into playing with other people and understanding what they felt like, what they wanted, and how to build something with them, that was the most beautiful thing to me, right?
Right.
And that's what keeps me in the game still is, after this, I'm going to go play at Guild & Co. with Paul Clark on drums. And at this point, I know what he's about so much. I've heard him play so much that he doesn't have to look me in the eyes to cue me anymore.
Right.
Like sometimes we will have visual cues, but at this point, I just know where he's going, right? And it's, it's somewhere between, it's a little bit of mind reading at a certain point,
Somewhere between like telepathy and empathy.
Totally. You tap into some empathetic energy a little bit, and that's the biggest thing that I love about music is appreciating other people that I'm playing with and other people that are watching, because the people that are watching are going to change the energy just as much as the people playing.
I love so much that is such a common thread.
Yeah.
That I hear from so many musicians that are either gigging or recording or new to the scene or old to the scene is that sense of synchronicity or community or communication, like that. I remember when I was this dumb little story.
Yeah.
When I was at this hotel in Seattle. It was a hostel in Seattle, and I went down to the like the common room area, and there was a bunch of people hanging out. And there's one dude, and I was super stoned, and there's one dude in the corner playing guitar. And the room was just like, you walk into the room, it's just like hazy, full of weed and cigarette smoke. This was back before you couldn't smoke indoors, and everyone was just like, just getting stoned. People from all over the world. And I saw one dude play guitar in the corner, and I'm not a great guitarist. What I love to do when I'm playing guitar, I'm not even a good guitarist. I can play like a blues riff that someone can play over, and that's it. But I haven't played in years.
So you got
something like
you
that.
You can hold that down.
Something similar to that. You're overestimating my skills as a guitarist.
Cool.
But this guy was really good, and I had my guitar in my room, and I went upstairs and grabbed my guitar, and I came back down, and I just sat down next to him and started playing along. You know, it was like, okay, what key is he in? We figured it out. And playing. I sat in that corner with him for, I don't know, rest of the night. And we hung out. We weren't just playing. We actually hung out. Mm-hmm. The next morning I come down the stairs and I walk into the kitchen for the hostel kitchen.
Yeah.
And it's a hostel kitchen. So you get your breakfast and everything. You sit down. It's like you make your own breakfast. You sit down. This woman sits down next to me and she just starts speaking in French. Just rattling on in French. And I was like, I'm really sorry, I don't speak French. She switches to English and she goes, what do you mean you don't speak French? You spent all night hanging out with, let's call him Vincent, for lack of a better name. And I was like, who the hell is Vincent? She's like, the guy you were playing guitar with. I was like, oh, I didn't catch his name. She was like, no, his name's Vincent. I'm like, okay.
You guys didn't even talk.
We didn't even fucking speak.
Sick.
She was like, he doesn't speak a word of English. How did you guys hang out all night? I'm like, oh, we were just playing guitar. I had no idea that the guy couldn't speak English.
Nice. Cool, man.
But I love that about, that's like such a thing that exists within music.
Yeah.
The way that people can do that.
Yeah, man. There's this super cool kid. He's a guitar player going to Cap College. And so transcribing is when you learn someone else's solo, sort of steal their licks, right?
Right. Yeah.
And he was in the phase, I've been in the same phase where it's more than making music. He's in the study phase where you're trying to gather information, right? It's like becoming a tradesperson, right?
Right.
Just getting your tools together. And he's saying to me, that was really cool, this, blah, blah. What should I transcribe? What should I learn? And I said, why don't you take a Miles Davis solo and transcribe the rests? And stop playing when he stops playing, and then write your own licks in between. Because, all these, sometimes with guitar, any instrument for that matter, all the fast, complex things that you can learn are cool, but eventually they're going to almost get you farther and farther away from connecting with people. Whereas,
right, yeah,
taking a break from a phrase or letting the music rest to let you hear what other people are saying a little bit more.
It's amazing the power of silence for a second or a rest. Like
man,
beat.
Oh yeah,
what it does.
Yeah, and obviously I'm still on the journey, but once you've done this for a while, you can feel the energy of the room and feel when
it's working.
Yeah, when it's working and when people are hanging on when you stop, Like if there's a cadenza where time stops and you let it sit for a second, you can feel when people are waiting a little bit, right? And that's more and more the energy that I'm trying to tap into, right? Because I think that's eventually, once you've played a long time, 10 plus years, all the guitar players, we pretty much know the same shit, right?
Yeah.
More or less, right? You know something I don't know. I know something you don't know, but it's pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
But how you say it, just like we pretty much have the same vocabulary, but it's how you speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I spoke about this before with you, where I would rather someone's more than sound good or bad. I would rather someone know that it's me when they can't see me yet. Have that signature sound, right?
Yeah. Which is something that's truly beautiful, and I do think that, like, I've spoken to a couple people about this. Trevor Tews comes to mind. We've talked about this before, and someone else, maybe it was Trevor. Someone else, you were playing at the airport, and they were like coming home.
All right, you outed me. The secret airport gig in the morning.
Oh, the secret airport gigs are awesome. Max books those gigs, doesn't he? Yeah. But they were coming home. This is a cool. I wish I could remember whose story this is. And maybe they've told.
I think that was Trevor. Yeah,
Trevor. He was coming home from a flight, and he was in the airport.
Yeah,
and he like lands. Yeah. And he was like, "Here's, look at this guitar." And he's like, "I know that fucking guitar." Yeah, that's Scott.
I was at one of those airport gigs, and there's that CBC guy, Ian Hannah-Mansing, and he put some post up, but didn't credit me. And I was talking to my roommate, and I was like, "Should I start a Twitter war with Ian Hannah-Mansing?" Just be like, "Come on, dude, credit me." But so I guess the beef starts now. Ian Hannah-Mansing, next time, man, I'm calling you out. Tag me at SJV Music. Just kidding, man. I
mean, no, like, yeah, I don't know how these things work, but let's start the war.
Let's start the fucking war. He did nothing wrong.
So when I think about guitarists that have a distinguishable sound that I grew up with or know, the two that come to mind right off the top of my head that I know the most are Carlos Santana and Duane Allman.
Hell yeah.
You could play two notes of a song I've never heard, notes of a Carlos Santana solo, and I'd be like, that's Carlos Santana.
Yeah.
Are there guitarists for you that are that distinguishable that that you looked up to when you were
just to me, like when I hear Ornette Coleman play the alto sax, it sounds so joyous. It sounds like no one else, and it almost sounds like a bird chirping or something. It's kind of interesting. Or even just BB King, you can play.
Oh yeah, God.
You can play the same note as him, but his vibrato. Yeah. And everyone copies the BB King vibrato, but I'm saying just maybe don't.
Just let it be BB, man.
Yeah, save that shit, dude. Come on. Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
So many, man. I'll go to my biggest inspirations if I had like a Mount Rushmore of people. It would probably be Tom Morello, John Coltrane, Ornette Coleman, Hendrix, and probably Mick Mars from Motley Crue.
Yeah.
Oh, but Eddie Van Halen, that's why the Mount Rushmore is hard. But
yeah,
Eddie Van Halen would be
4 with the Rushmore, right?
However many, I don't know.
Yeah, you can just make your own Rushmore.
Yeah. And Dimebag Darrell, because I love metal too, man.
Yeah. I recently met Zach Wilde.
What?
Yeah. No. Well,
with Charisse.
With Charisse.
Wilde?
Yeah.
Sick. I heard about that.
It was crazy.
What was Zach Wilde like, dude?
It was eccentric, but a total gentleman. It was kind of, we walk into the trailer and his manager, he sees me and my brother walking in, and my brother's a big metal fan, so it was like,
hi, Mr. Zach Wilde.
Yeah, he was chill. Yeah. He was chill.
Oh, he was chill.
But it was really, it was a cool experience. We walk in and the manager's like, just a couple minutes, boys. And we're like, yeah, Charisse is in charge. We're not in charge of any of this. We're just gonna like, we were about to go home. I'm like, we don't need to meet him. And she's like, no, you need to meet him. I'm like, okay, cool. We'll meet him. And then we went in and he chatted for a bit, and he started talking about, how 20 years ago, how many bottles of Crown he would have had by at this point. And he's a total teetotaler now. It's super sweet, very like, we just had a chill conversation about I don't know what. And then we asked him if he could sign, because Khaled that we work with, he's a big fan, but he wasn't able to come that night. Yeah, they were like, "Can you sign an autograph for our friend Khaled?
Can you sign Khaled's panties for us, please?"
And we had like a napkin or something. They're like, "Can you just sign your name?" And he was like, "Oh, I'll do one better." And he went into his room and he grabbed a big poster and he signed it for Khaled. And he was a really sweet guy.
Sick. So he took the time to make you guys feel good. And,
yeah. And it was a dope show. It was Anthrax and Exodus.
Anthrax, Exodus, and Black Label Society.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a good show.
Wow,
I had never seen any of them before. I'd never been to like a speed metal show before.
Yeah.
And seeing Anthrax, like,
hell yeah.
I was like, wow, these guys are cool.
Dude, Anthrax kicks ass.
Yeah.
See, what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I have like a right hand that's very it's jazz, right? I can't do the metal down picking, right? So my right hand's like this so that I can play with my fingers too with the chords, right? But they got this down picking, because if you play up and down, it doesn't sound as metal. So Scott Ian, the rhythm guitar player,
he's just go like this all the fucking time.
Dude, he's the greatest heavy metal rhythm guitar player of all time. Just I can't hit the down picking like that, man. It doesn't sound the same. Like you can do the down up, but it just doesn't sound as guttural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, those little like techniques, that the pick techniques and the finger techniques. I've never been able to figure out how to play with a pick. Like, I can. I mean, but I hate doing it, so I've always just played with my hand.
Yeah. It's there's tons of different ways to do it. My favorite instructional DVD title is John McLaughlin has a DVD. It says John McLaughlin, this is how I do it, right? Because he's not like this is the best way. It's just like, it's an instrument and whatever gets you to. It's interesting. Like some people need to get to a lower level of mastery on guitar to sound like themselves, right? They just get it right away. Like Neil Young, the guitar solo for Southern Man, I think it is. It's just like a couple notes, but it's just him, right? So he didn't need to learn all the chords that I had to learn to sound like myself. He just... Right,
yeah.
So whatever your vision is, right? Sometimes it'll come quicker or slower.
When you started playing, were you... you mentioned earlier that learning the Neil Young songs, you called them cowboy chords, I think. Yeah. Were you playing by ear at that point?
No. Well, a little bit. I had a teacher. His name's Lawrence Dinwiddie. And he was like, he probably changed my life, to be honest. Because he just taught me guitar from the ground up. And, I did naturally have a pretty good ear. And it came by ear, but I did learn to read music and the whole thing, right?
Did you learn to read music before you went to school?
Yeah, for sure.
When you, how do you go from being, tell me how you went from like the kid in high school that was into Van Halen and Motley Crue, and understood that the guitarist for Anthrax was the best speed metal guitarist in the world, to going to the Berkeley College of Music in Boston to study jazz.
Okay, so I had a rock band, and we would drive up to Whistler to play bars. And we were like 15, 16 playing bars up in Whistler, and eventually I started studying fusion and stuff like that. And then Berkeley would do tours, like scholarship tours, right? So you'd go audition for them. And then I would talk to people who had gone there and like, what, you know, I got this audition coming up. What should I play? Blah, blah, blah. So I played them my own track, and then they asked me to do a few things, and they gave me a scholarship to go there. So that's kind of how it went.
So you went on a scholarship?
Yeah.
Yeah. How long was the program?
I got a full degree, 4-year degree. I got it done in 3 because it's just...
You're a G?
I guess.
I said it. You don't have to.
Oh, thanks, bro. Thanks. You know, it's more just like I kind of wanted to get it done and start working. And
that was in 2013, right?
Yeah. So I went there 2010. I graduated high school 2010. Went there September 2010. Got the degree spring 2013.
Wait a minute. You graduated high school in when?
2010.
2010.
Yeah.
Went to school there in 2010.
Yeah, September 2010 was when I started.
And then, Jesus, you were a baby.
I was a baby, 18, man. 18.
Yeah. Were
18,
you allowed,
19.
Are you allowed to have fun in Boston at 18? How does that even work?
Funny, man. Boston, the scene in Boston. I mean, yeah, there's lots of fun. You know, we had to, because the Berkley guitar department was just all dudes, right? So we would go to this part of town called Alston, and we would just talk to the Boston University girls. We'd try and talk to them and get invited to their parties, you know. So that was. I had to wait till
Any success?
you know, every once in a while.
Every once in a while, they would not see us coming.
Yeah.
We would get in on a sneak attack.
Yeah. Talk to them about John Scofield's guitar tone.
Yeah.
They turn around real quick. So yeah,
You're like trying to pull a Matt Damon on him from Good Will Hunting, but you're talking about John Scofield's guitar tone.
Yeah, so that was the move in Berkeley, which is what me and a few friends did, was go to Berkeley but get a Boston University girlfriend. You know.
Did anyone actually pull that off?
I pulled it off, and you know, a few other friends did. Yeah, thanks. It was bleak. In the Berkeley College guitar department, you know. Unfortunately, it would be dope if there's more, you know. There's some really good female guitar players around, but I'd like to see more. I'm doing good, man. Yeah. So anyway, we were in Boston hanging out, and then after a few years, I got to study with this guy who just passed. His name's Mick Goodrick, who's a really special person to me, man. Even though, you know, I graduated and I never talked to him again. But he was always just so close to my heart because of the info that he showed me. Mm-hmm. To me, he's probably, I'm going to say in my very biased opinion that he's the greatest guitar educator of all time. So I got to take lessons with him. And he totally changed the way I thought about music. It's interesting because he died of complications from Parkinson's, right? But he never told me, and I always see him. He'd play guitar, and I'd almost felt like he was nervous, but it was Parkinson's, right? He's shaking.
Still playing.
He was still playing. And he played in a way, you know, I'm talking about the space, transcribing Miles Davis's space in his phrases. He would play so sparse, you know, he would really save the moments, and he would play chords that still to this day, like a lot of times, you know, if you play the guitar or the piano and you play a chord, I'll be able to hear what it is. Sometimes some chords he played, I'd say, what the fuck is that? Still to this day. So after a while, you know, you couldn't just study with him. After a couple of years, I got to spend a couple of years with him. And that forever changed my life, man. Forever, you know. I remember he was an interesting guy, you know. I'd see him in the Boston Gardens, walking by himself. I'd say, hi, Mick. And he just looked me in the eyes and just totally diced me, right? And I was, even though I was young, I was like, you know, I'm playing hard and I'm practicing, and this motherfucker is going to say hi to me, right? So I'd see him in the Boston Gardens every day. Hi, Mick. Nothing. Hi, Mick. Eventually, he'd just put his head up. Eventually, it's hi, Scott. And then one day, he goes, Scott, would you like to go to the Boston Gardens and look at some birds with me? Because that was his thing.
Well, that's its own thing right there.
Yeah. And I was like, far out, man. Fuck yeah, let's go look at some birds. You know, I probably snuck off to smoke first, you know, and just sat with him. And he's like, that's a swallow right there. And I'd just be like, cool, man, that's sick. And we just wouldn't talk until he saw another bird, right? So he was a weird guy, right. but so deep in the way. So he would teach me all these chords and all this shit, and I would practice it so fucking hard. Literally, I would practice it so hard until I would wake up like this, and I fucking have to get my fingers stretched out.
You'd have to like actually manually.
Oh yeah, like this middle finger tendon. If you go like this through it, I can still feel the scar tissue. Right? Like he gave me tendonitis because I was trying to play these jazz chords that he taught me. Right, and I was so stressed out because I was like, I just wanted to. I knew he was a genius, right, and I wanted to soak up his info. I knew I only had probably. It was a year and a half I studied with him, and I knew every day was like maybe the last day, right? So. One day I come in so stressed, and he's got a drawing of a horse, right? Outline of a horse. And he goes, draw this, right? And I'm like, I wanted to, in my head, I'm like, fuck, I wanted to ask about, the modes of melodic minor and what the application is in 5 chords or whatever, right? And so he says, draw this. And he's like, take your time with it. He can tell I'm pissed off. So I draw it pissed off. It's a shitty horse, right? And the drawing is just an outline, just lines, very simple drawing of a horse. And he gets me to copy it, and it's shitty. And so he takes the horse and he turns it upside down. I'm left-handed, right? He goes, you're left-handed? I said, yeah. He said, fantastic. Use your right hand. But instead of drawing the picture, just draw each individual line. Focus on where you are in the moment, right? So I'm with my goofy hand, my right hand, and I draw it. I found that photo of the horse. It's better than I ever thought it could be. Like, it's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so the second time he's like, take your time. And we drew the horse, and it was way better. And I was like, whoa. And I felt really calm. He said, what I just did is, something about changing from the micro to the macro, right? And he's like, you're left-handed. I made you use your right hand. We just turned on the creativity in your brain. And the biggest thing is that you're thinking too much when you play. You're thinking of the big picture too much. You're thinking of everything. You're tripping out. Just think of one line at a time, one tiny thing. And, that story in itself can be kind of trippy or be like, oh, this guy was far out. But just with all the other depth of knowledge he gave me, like that one day kind of changed my life.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm, I want to tell as many people about Mick Goodrick because I feel like he didn't get enough love. He's one of the greatest to ever do it,
Mick Goodrick. Is there enough in here for us to do a little?
Oh, a toast to Mick? Hell yeah.
A toast to Mick.
Hell yeah.
There's not a lot left, so we'll do a little, You're a guitar teacher.
Yeah.
As well. You talk about guitar educators.
To Mick.
No, to Mick. You talk about guitar educators and how important this man was to you.
Yeah.
Not even just as a guitarist, but as a human being.
Yeah.
Do you strive to emulate the way that other teachers have taught you?
Not at all.
No?
Not at all. I strive to take their information and spit it in my own way.
That's really neat.
And there's things that I think I can do.
That they couldn't?
Yeah. But
they did things that
I could never think of in a million years. Like Mick, the depth of his knowledge, I'm like, But yeah, we all have our own things to offer, I think, especially with something really specialized, right? a real passion of yours, the more it's almost like the more you do it your own way at a certain point, the more successful you'll become.
Yeah.
I've been rolling with that for a while. It's going all right, man. You know, it's going all right.
Yeah. Do you enjoy teaching?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to stay humble and stay patient. And I also feel like the information that was given to me is not mine, right?
Totally.
And it sounds really cheap.
Because who owns music?
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody. You can't own that shit.
Yeah, exactly. And
It's like trying to own the human soul.
yeah.
I'm slippery as shit. I'll get away.
Yeah, exactly, man. And the teachers, you know, I got a name drop just because, you know, Lawrence Dinwiddie, David Tronzo, John Damian, and Mick Goodrick. Everything they gave me, you know, I feel good passing it on to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a trip, man. It's been a trip, and it's not stopping anytime soon.
Yeah. Do you have you ever encountered any students, or what's it feel like when you get a student that really wants it
Yeah.
and you feel like has the spark?
It feels a little bit like an honor where you have to, you know, it's like watching a plant grow. You're like, I got to water this right, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a journey, and I'm still trying to get better at it. I'd say I'm better at guitar than guitar teaching. you know, but yeah. I have a great student right now. Her name's Bukola. She's a singer in town. And some people are just so natural at music, right? They can absorb information so quickly. It's just like, you know, it's a balance between giving someone the information, but also giving them enough space to grow themselves.
See, I think that everyone is natural at music, but that we're
It's not
trained.
true.
We're
It's not
trained
true,
not
dude.
to be.
It's not true. Listen, I'll teach you all you want, but some people don't got it.
Some people just
got
don't.
it.
Some people just don't get it.
Yeah. But you know.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Tip of
man.
that. I'll bow out.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you one specific question, because this is a question that I always have every time I hear an album that I really like that is all instrumental.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you listen to songs like, you know, Kickstart My Heart, or like any song with lyrics, except for some obscure, you know, type songs. They exist. The song title is always based somewhat on the lyrics.
Yeah.
So what's the process of naming your songs?
Oh, like
when
for
they don't have
example, the
lyrics.
instrumental album Stanza,
Yeah.
each one of those songs and the title of the songs has a story, but I'm never going to tell them.
So that's amazing. I love that. But how much of that can you tell without telling what you don't want to tell?
I guess, you know, the goal of playing
Like, is it, sorry, let me rephrase my question. Is it this song, what's the first song in the album? It starts with a C.
Comfy.
Yeah. I love that song. I hear it all the time.
Hell yeah.
It's almost like a guilt. Like that song just feels like guilt because of how many times I've heard you play it there.
Yeah.
I'll rephrase that. It feels like home. That song feels like home. And the fact that it's called Comfy makes it that much even better, because the song just feels comfy to my brain.
Yeah.
But so you take a song like that, and we talk about it being like every song has a story that I'll never tell.
Yeah.
Is it a story that existed in your life while you wrote it? Or is it a story that existed because you wrote it?
You know, I'll tell that one because it's not as deep. That one Comfy was just like, you know, a lot of those tunes I wrote far before 2019, right?
Right.
And that tune was just kind of sitting in like, because when I was younger, I was like, all I wanted to do was just fucking play guitar and pay my rent. And if I do that, I'm sitting comfy, right? And that was just kind of me being like, running from gig to gig, being like, you know, we're cooling out, we did it, and it feels good. So it was just kind of, you know, a mini celebration of the lifestyle, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is that they're all exceedingly deep and fleeting moments at the same time, and you'll never tell me which ones are which.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll never tell you except this one. I'll tell you right now.
I kind of think that you would tell me if I like remembered all the other ones as intrinsically. You'd be like, I won't tell you, but I'll tell you.
Yeah, totally. Off mic.
Scott, it's been a delight to fucking have you on.
Well, you boys are a delight. Paco, too.
You are, tonight, this very evening, within minutes of us turning off the cameras, you're going to go play down at Guilt Company.
Yes, sir.
For St. Patty's Gay.
St. Patty's
which
Gay.
I fucking love. I fucking love it so much that Josh Wiper and Bradley Barkman are playing their gay night on St. Patty's Day, and they're calling it St. Patty's Gay. That's just amazing.
Yeah, no green beers tonight, dude.
No green beers. No green beers. If you want green beers, then you would have went somewhere else because you wouldn't have been able to get into Guilt.
Yeah.
If you came into Guilt that night, I'm speaking past tense because we're in the future now. I feel like we just time traveled. If you came into Guild that night asking for green beers, we probably would have told you to go away.
Yeah.
But beyond that, in the next couple weeks, 3 weeks, you play at Guild all the time. What are you excited about moving forward? What's big on your plate?
What's big on my plate is the next thing on my plate, man, because every last thing could be the last thing you do, and every last note could be the last note you play. So every night I play like I'm not afraid to die, and I know it sounds cheesy, but I do mean it.
That's a beautiful way to look at life.
Yeah.
Gonna get one more little shot out of this.
Can I leave you with a Wayne Shorter quote?
You can.
Before he died, one of the greatest, one of my favorites of all time. He said, right before he died, his last quote was, "It's time to finish." Oh, I'm fucking this up now. He said, "It's time to find a new body and continue the mission." Cheers, man.
Cheers. Thanks, Scott.